The fundic region of the stomach. The submucosa consists of normal structure that contains blood vessels, lymphatics, and Meissner plexus. It has a muscularis externa or musculosa, which is composed from 3 layers in the stomach. An inner one, which is oblique, but it's absent in the pylorus. The middle is circular, and the outer is longitudinal layer. The outermost layer is the serosa, which consists of surface layer of flattened mesothelial cells resting on a thin layer of loose connective tissue impregnated with blood vessels and lymphatics. Here, this represents a cross-section of the fundic region, showing the mucosa, the lining here, the lumen, the outer or the layer facing the lumen is اللي هو the epithelial lining عبارة عن simple columnar epithelium forming projections. Here, the gastric pits. Beneath the lining epithelium, lamina propria. Lamina propria, as we can see in this cross section, it contains gastric glands. These are gastric glands. Many of gastric glands. And here, the muscularis mucosa, the third layer of the mucosa. What characterizes the fundic region or the characteristic structure of the fundic region of the stomach? The glandular epithelium, which is impregnated with the glands in lamina propria. This what characterized the fundic region. This represents a cross-section of also the fundic region. In this section, we can see the mucosa. Here we have the cervix. This is the cervix epithelium, simple columnar epithelium. Beneath the lamina propria, and as we can see here, in the lamina propria, this represents the lamina propria beneath the lining epithelium. Here, it is impregnated with glands, gastric glands, which are mainly parietal cells. And also, we can see here the Jeff cells. Parietal cells that secrete HCl, and Jeff cells secrete the pepsin. Then beneath the muscularis mucosa. Going to the inside, there is the submucosa having the normal structure where it contains the connective tissue, these collagen fibers. Also, there is the blood vessels. These represent the blood vessels. Going to the inside, we have the muscularis externa. As we can see in this section, there are 3 layers of the muscular fibers: the oblique, the inner layer, oblique muscle layer. Then we have the circular muscle layer, and the outer one is longitudinal muscle layer. Here, the muscularis contains the myenteric nerve plexus, which is a cluster of nerve cells resembling the Meissner plexus, which is present in the submucosa. Here, the Meissner, which is found in the submucosa, which is a cluster of nerve cells. Also here in the muscularis externa, there is another nerve plexus, aeropatch or myenteric nerve plexus. Coming at the outside, there is the serosa, and we said before the serosa, it is related to the visceral peritoneum. Here, as we can see between brackets, it means serosa, visceral peritoneum. And these here, the whitish cells represent the adipose cells. The pyloric region of the stomach mucosa having irregular projections or folds where pyloric glands reside in the lamina propria and in the submucosa. So, what characterizes this structure or this part of the stomach? The submucosa and lamina propria are rich with glands or in glands which are alveolar in shape, multicellular pyloric glands. Those are modified from the columnar epithelium secreting mucus. And the gastric beds are deep, extending half the thickness of mucosa. Here, as we can see in this cross section, the gastric beds are extending deeper half the mucosa. This is the lining epithelium with folds or projections, as you can see. Here we have the lamina propria containing the pyloric glands. and also in the submucosa. It's extending in the submucosa, also these glands. Then we have the muscularis externa. As in the previous slide, there was a note that the oblique muscles are absent from the pyloric region. So in the pyloric region, we will have inner circular, which are thickened to form the pyloric sphincter, and an outer longitudinal layer. So the smooth muscles are very thick in order to form this sphincter, to control the movement of food through this pylorus. The submucosa and serosa, the same structure as in the fundic part, where the serosa is composed from simple squamous epithelium. So having normal structure, having normal basic structure. Here also the cross section showing regular folds here, regular folds of various dimensions of representing gastric pits, which are columnar epithelial. Here is columnar epithelial, simple columnar epithelial. Here, the round circular cells, as we can see them here, these represent the pyloric glands, which are found in the mostly in the lamina propria, secreting mucus. Here the gastric pits, where the lining mucosa, as we can see, having columnar epithelium. This is columnar epithelium, and there are folds of various dimensions. This is the lamina propria. Here, this is the lamina propria to the inside. And this represents the pyloric glands secreting mucus or mucin, which are pregnated in the lamina propria most. Here in this cross section, we can see the 4 tissue layers of the pylorus, the 4 basic tissue layers. as we can see the mucosa from here to here, the lining, the surface epithelium or lining epithelium, forming projections or folds, irregular folds, having varying dimensions. And here to the inside, there is the lamina propria, connective tissue, and impregnated here within the lamina propria, as we can see, these are the structures of glands, pyloric glands. And as we can see, the epithelium is thickened because of the thick, due to the pyloric glands which are present here in the lamina propria. This is pyloric gland. This is pyloric gland also, multicellular, having round to oval nucleus, present from the structure. We can see the nucleus are in the base. Also, there is lymphatic nodules here in the submucosa. Then coming the muscularis mucosa. Here, these are the three basic layers of the mucosa. Beneath the mucosa, there is the submucosa, connective tissue containing blood vessels. Then the muscularis. Here we can see different layers. And the outermost, the serosa. طبعا بالنسبة للمسل layer المفروض هناك 3 layers, but because it is closed from the sphincter, it becomes 2 layers, as we can see here. This represents the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine, and this is the pyloric region. This is the pyloric region of the stomach. As we can see here, thickening of the muscles close to the sphincter, because there is an increase in the circular smooth muscle for rapid contractions in order to push the food from the pylorus into the duodenum. So there is a thickening in the muscular layer, in the tunica muscularis here. There is a thickening, as we can see. بينما هون إذا قارنا هذا الجزء هون أبعاده thicker than اللي هو the muscularis in this layer of the stomach, and even here in the duodenum. As you can see here, thin layer of the tunica muscularis externa. بينما منطقة السفنكتر الدايمنشن تبع اللي هو the muscle is thicker and the sphincter. This is the pyloric opening. فإذا there is an increase in circular smooth muscles in this area. In this table, it illustrates the basic structural differences between the different parts of the stomach, the cardia, fundus, and body, and actually the differences here are related to the fundus, or the modifications are related to the fundus, because the body is composed of normal basic structures. يعني الكاركترستكس موجودة في الفندق region أكثر، بينما the modification يعني أو differences في different histology of the different layers of the body غير موجودة فعليا في البودي. And the pylorus. First, in the cardia, it contains cardiac glands, and these glands are multicellular, acinous in shape, secreting mucin. We call them the cardiac glands. In the fundus region, it contains gastric glands, which are unicellular glands of different types. They are most primary from composed of parietal and Schiff cells, but there are other types of glands present, as we mentioned before. The pyloric region contains pyloric glands, which are multicellular, acinous, mucus secreting glands, which are located mostly in the lamina propria. The other structure, which is the gastric pits, in the cardia, they are less deeper than the pyloric glands, the same as in the fundus and body. Gastric pits are less deeper than the pyloric glands, while in the pylorus, the gastric pits are more deeper than the gastric or cardiac glands. The third structure or basic structure, the parietal cells, which are absent in the cardia, or they are very, very few, while in the fundic region, the parietal cells are more. In the pyloric region, the parietal cells are few. Here, this cross section showing the gastroduodenal junction. Here's the point of the junction. This is the lumen, of course. This represents the duodenum or duodenal part, and this represents the pyloric part of the stomach, coming here to a point connecting the two parts. Here we call it the gastroduodenal junction, or the junction point here. There is a structural modification that occurs here that include the type of the epithelial, which is simple columnar, but at the point here of the duodenum, it is rich with goblet cells. يعني اوكي هو simple columnar، لكن لما بنيجي بهاي المنطقة اللي هي of the duodenum, it becoming rich with goblet cell. فهذا الموديفيكيشن اللي بيصير. طبعا goblet cells they secrete mucin. And the epithelial forms finger-like projections. Finger-like projections. We call them the microvilli or villi. These are the structural modifications that occur with this type of the epithelium. Then the goblet cells and also the microvilli. Here we have the pyloric glands in the mucosa of the stomach in comparison to duodenum region. Here we have the glands in the submucosa. They are multicellular. Here they are multicellular, secreting mucin. So the small intestine, from anatomical point of view, it's divided into three parts: the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Describing the basic structure or structures of the small intestine, it has mucosa. The mucosa, it has characteristic features: plica circularis, or valves or of Kerkring. Also, the villi or microvilli. Here, as we can see, these the villi, finger-like projections, تشبه الأصابع. Goblet cells few. There is crypts of Libercan, which are intestinal glands. The glands are lined with columnar cells, goblet cells, Banner cells, and enteroendocrine cells. Here, if we look for this cross or this diametric figure, these are the villi, finger-like projections. In order, this modification to increase the absorption of food. This modification occurs in the epithelial layer. Here, this is the lamina propria, the second layer of the mucosa. Then there are the muscularis mucosa, and these are to the inside. These are the crypts. Here, Plechia circularis, and these are the villi, as we can see them, finger-like projections. And here this represents the muscularis externa. This is the jejunal part of the small intestine. This is a schematic diagram representing the finger-like projections. Here are the finger-like projections. the villi. Here, these are the villi, finger-like projections. If we take a part of this villi to demonstrate the basic structures that are present, as we can see, there are different gland types present. Here, the crypts of Libercan. Regarding the different types of cells, we have at the surface, the absorptive cells has brush border, and we can see the blue cells here, the goblet cells, we secrete mucin. We have endocrine cells to the base, going to the inside or to the base. Also, we have other cells present. The Paneth cells here at the base. So, in the small intestine, regarding the other layers, we mentioned about the mucosa, finger-like projections, which are the villi. Coming to the other layers, the basic histological layers, submucosa, it has a normal structure containing the blood vessels, lymphatics. Also, they contain Meissner plexus, the submucosa. To the outside, the muscularis externa, it is composed of two layers, the outer longitudinal and the inner circular layers of smooth muscles. The outer most serosa, mostly it has the serosa, but in certain region they lose the basic feature that is the simple squamous epithelium. Therefore, it will be covered with an adventitia. So, showing in this figure, here we have the mucosa. There are modification in the epithelium. It is okay, simple columnar, لكن هناك there are folds like finger-like folds. We call them the villi. These are the villi. Also, as we can see here, the goblet cells اللي هم white color. This is the goblet cells secreting mucus. Here the crypts of Libercan. Then this is the submucosa, the muscularis, two layers. The inner is circular and the outer is longitudinal. Here, the adventitia lacking simple squamous epithelium. In the duodenum, there is what we call Brunner or Brunner's glands, which are duodenal glands also, duodenal glands. They are multicellular, acinous in shape, secreting mucin. They are residing in the submucosa. Here in this figure, here the submucosal glands, اللي هو Brunner's glands. Also in this figure, the arrows is pointing to these glands, the Brunner's glands, which are present in the submucosa, multicellular glands. This is a high power view of the duodenal mucosa. Here epithelium simple columnar، لكن في هون اللي شايفينهم هاي اللون الأبيض الدوائر. This is the goblet cells which secrete the mucin طبعا. They form, the epithelium form projections like finger-like projections زي الأصابع. Here a thin layer of muscularis mucosa موجودة. طبعا هاي اللي بالداخل هون اللي شايفينهم this is the lamina propria. This is the jejunum. الجوجينم الفيلاي بتشبه التانج، يعني مش like the finger. If we see here are the طبعا كلياتها this is a villus. Here the crepes. This is the submucosa. طبعا in the submucosa there are no Brunner's glands, absence of Brunner's gland. This is the ileum. In the ileum, there are finger-like projection, but they are short or shorter than the duodenum. Also, the ileum characterized by the presence of lymphoid aggregations in lamina propria. هدول we call them pairs, patches. Also, they are present in the submucosa. إذا هون في عنا اللي هي الvilli. These are the villi. Here, the pair patches in the lamina propria. أيضا موجودة in the submucosa. This is lymph follicles, germinal center. This is a germinal center. يعني خلينا نقول lymph nodules يعني aggregates of lymphocytes. Coming to the large intestine, anatomically it is consists of appendix, colon, rectum, and anal canal. Regarding the structure from histological point of view, first, the layer facing the lumen is the mucosa. What are the characteristic features? There is an absence of placia circularis and villi in the large intestine. Why? No, there's no need for the villi for absorption of food. Already it is absorbed in the small intestine. There are microvilli, presence of microvilli, presence of crypts of lubricant, and presence of goblets in large numbers, secrete mucus. It contains also submucosa, normal structure of submucosa. Regarding the muscularis externa, the inner two layers, inner circular layer, it is thin compared to the small intestine, and an outer longitudinal layer which forms Taenia coli. The adventitia it's characterized by forming special structures with connective tissue. It forms sac-filled this structure, which is called appendices epiplochia. It's like a sac filled with adipocytes. It's filled with fat, pouch-like processes filled with fat. So it forms here the adventia, special structure which characterize the large intestine. Appendices epiplochia. طبعا it's an adventitia because lacking the simple squamous epithelium. This figure represents the large intestine, taking section from it, showing the large number of goblet cells, which is by blue color. This is the goblet cells. Here are the goblet cells. There is a large number of goblet cells in the large intestine. Here, the enteroendocrine cells with green color. Absorptive cells, which absorb water and minerals. This is a magnified view of a villus. As we can see, this type of epithelium, simple columnar, but because there is projections, or these projections, finger-like projections or folds, therefore they are called villus. When they modified in this shape, forming villi in order to absorb water and minerals. Here we can see the whitish color here is the goblet cells. إذا اللي هو المايكروvilli or these absorptive cells in order to absorb water and minerals. Here, section or cross section from the large intestine. As we can see here, the whitish color, these represent the large number of the goblet cells which are present in the large intestine. This is the lamina propria, this is the epithelial, lining epithelial, and the whitish color representing the goblet cells which are impregnated within the columnar cells. Crypts of Libercan here. This is the tinea coli. On the different layers of the large intestine, we have the mucosa, then submucosa, and the muscularis externa. Here, the outer, the longitudinal muscles, which form what we call it the tinea coli. Appendix, vermiform appendix. It is a small blind-ended diverticulum. طبعا there are folds or projections in the epithelium. Crypts of Libercan. In the lamina propria. Here, the lamina propria, their accumulation of lymphoid tissue, which may extend to the submucosa. The blue color, here, blue color. Intestinal villi are usually absent, not the villi. Crypts are poorly formed, crypts of Libercan. The muscularis externa is thin, and there is no tinea coli. Here also this represents the lymphoid tissue, as we can see here, lymphoid tissue. Because it may extend, as we said, to the submucosa, which are aggregates or accumulation of lymphoid tissue. Here, a cross section which revealing the aggregations of lymphoid tissue. هي lymphoid tissue هذا اللون الأزرق طبعا within the lamina propria and also the submucosa. Here, this is the mucosa layer facing the lumen. طبعا هون فينا submucosa, as we can see these structures, the blue structures, which are the lymphoid tissue. There is aggregates of lymphoid tissue within the lamina and submucosa. The rectum the basic or the characteristic structures, it has intestinal glands which are straight like wrist, test tubes, intestinal glands like test tubes, a continuous coat of longitudinal muscle is present. It is mainly this rectum characterized by the absence of tinea, absence of appendices, epiplochia. That's what you have to know. The anal canal, regarding the structures or basic structures, the epithelium, upper part of it is simple columnar, middle part stratified squamous, non-keratinized, lower part is covered with true skin. يعني keratinized stratified squamous. The mucosa have characteristic longitudinal folds. They are known as anal column. Here, the anal columns. Here, anal columns. Small mucosal folds between the anal columns. Pectinate line. Pectinate line. Crits disappear below this line. The most characteristic feature you have to remember regarding the anal canal, muscularis externa, the circular muscle forms involuntary internal anal sphincter. This is the most important characteristic. It has two sphincters, inner or the interior circular and the outer, it's composed of stratified skeletal muscle. This represents the section anorectal junction between the anal and rectum. a wide range of structural modifications. The basic information is the type of epithelium, two basic structural features. Here, the anorectal junction, the epithelium is switching from simple columnar epithelium into stratified squamous epithelium. This is the change. And the other feature is the skeletal muscle, which is present in the anus or anal here, the skeletal, which forms the sphincter, external anal sphincter, skeletal muscles in the external anal sphincter. إذن the two basics modifications بيهمونا في الانتقال من الريكتم to the anus اللي هو في عنا أول شيء the change in epithelium from simple columnar epithelium into stratified squamous epithelium. أيضا في عنا هناك the presence of skeletal muscles ومش موجودة في منطقة الريكتم. في عنا هناك smooth muscles internal smooth muscles موجودة، بينما في اللي هو الانس في هناك in the sphincter there is the skeletal muscles, striated skeletal muscles. These are the two basic features. Coming to this figure, this slide reveals the basic structural differences between the different parts of gastrointestinal tract. In the esophagus, there is thick epithelium, stratified squamous, non-keratinized, having esophagus glands in the submucosa. This is regarding the esophagus. The stomach, representing or related to the fundic region. Here, representing the fundic or related to the fundus. Presence of, as we can see here, the glands, unicellular of different types of glands, primarily or mainly the chief and parietal cells present in the epithelium. In the small intestine, the arrangement of the simple columnar and finger-like projections, we call them the villi, in order to increase the absorption of food and water. This was which characterized the epithelium. بينما عندنا هون in the large intestine the basic structural feature which characterize the large intestines, the presence of the goblet cells in large numbers within the simple columnar epithelium. إذن هاي اللي هي different basic features between the different parts of gastrointestinal regarding اللي هو the lining epithelium.